And we are live. Hi, I'm Bart Weiss, director of the Dallas Video Festival here. We're doing what I think is the last of our Google Hangouts, being that our festival starts tomorrow night. And we have, this one is from as far away as we've had from everybody. And just an incredibly busy person. Here is Marcus Newstetter. Did I get that right?
Yes, that's correct. Thank
And
you.
Marcus, do you want to tell us what you've been doing today? Because it's really late at night and you've been working really hard.
Well, I've just come off out of a performance using a whole series of Chinatown lights that I'm playing with at the moment. It's the International Year of Light, and the Department of Science and Technology has given me a bit of a grant to play with light in different communities across the country. So what I've been doing is working with communities to tell their stories using light and long-time exposure photography. And it's part of the kind of crossover of art science program that I've been running for the last year across the country. Part of which is actually also featured in the book and film that will be on your festival.
Yeah, so let's talk about this for a second. The festival, which is, the film is called My Room at the Center of the Universe. I wanted to make sure I got that right.
Yeah.
It's just an incredibly beautiful film that both, I mean, in just an anthropological sense of seeing what it's like to live there is just an incredible thing. But the mixing of art and technology is so beautifully woven together, and something that we're having a problem here in the United States because we believe these as two completely different universes that don't meld together. But in the way this character explores his universe and brings it personally to him, these two things are just intuitively work together. Tell me how you thought about that and made this work.
Well, for the last about 6 years, since 2008, my partner and I, Bronwyn Lace, have been collaborating on going to Sutherland, which is the small town in the Karoo, in the desert, in South Africa. And it's the home of the large astronomical observatory, which has got about 16 or so international domes on its plateau. And we were asked for the International Year of Astronomy to do a project that related to the subject somehow. And when we went there, we found the disparity between the scientific research station and the millions being pumped into there, and the community at the base of the hill being a quite extreme contrast. So in other words, the 4,000 people living at the foot of this observatory, about 15 minutes away from the actual telescopes, were living in, a lot of them in poverty, a lot of them with alcohol abuse and difficulty of hopelessness and living in darkness, so to speak. And the sense of apartheid still existed in this little town, even though it's 20 years after apartheid now. And so our objective as artists, was to say, how can we create a link and a connectivity between the sciences and the kind of social need of support and cohesion. And so it started a long journey where we started off by flying one kite and getting the kids to look up into the sky rather than deal with science, just to deal with play. That eventually led to, as I said, 6 years of interventions and experiments. And so after all of this time, working very closely with the observatory and the scientists, we've done all kinds of radical things, from building little embassies for the communities in and amongst the telescopes, the kind of naked eye telescope called the Sutherland Embassy, or the Sutherland Dome, which is a community dome for the people that have dealt with forced removals and land claim ownership issues, etc., and to kind of claim some land back to the colored community that was originally kind of the Bushman community, if you want to call it that, that was kind of pushed off its land. And so this project became a very difficult social, historical story, I guess, of people living in darkness and silence that is required for scientific pursuit, but
Tell me how
creates
the
a sense of
script
hopelessness.
evolved for this, because I mean it's the way the story starts with our character going out, meeting an anthropologist or archaeologist, excuse me, and sort of understanding the value of things of the past, and then finding drawings, and then doing drawings. It's sort of, it's amazing how we're drawn in to his universe, which I think is really kind of beautiful.
Well, the beauty of that, if I may, is that Elvira Boyson, who's the kind of lead actor, so to speak, as well as all the other people in the film, they're all people from the community. They're all people that we met in 2008, and since then have worked together on our project. And when Africa Meets Africa, which is the organization that funded and supported this project and saw the vision of putting together this book and the film, And the director, Guy Spiller, came to us and said, look, let's turn your project into something larger to tell the story for an educational purpose, not only to the community there, but beyond, through the film and the book, which is an educational resource that comes with it. It was a great opportunity for us to harness all the stories and the networks and the people. And so working with archaeologists, astronomers, and obviously artists ourselves and a few others, we were able to weave the three disciplines together to help Alvheida Boysen create a sense of his own identity in that place. And that's really what the film is about.
And and it's so like seamless in the way that these integrations are happening, and which doesn't really happen a lot, unfortunately, in the real world. And in the film, what makes it just even so much more spectacular is you get to the end, and all of these items he's been exploring and going to meet people and seeing things and discovering things, and then he turns it into his own room, and he brings the art and creates that in that space, which is just so beautiful. And the art direction of the film and the way it sort of livens up his space is just truly astounding.
Thank you. It was it was an incredible collective process. I mean, Bronwyn, Guy, Helene, myself, the whole team, everyone was involved in trying to source different types of content, but the magic really happened when the content became an installation in his late grandmother's room, where he was now living, packing her things away, but at the same time discovering a sense of his own identity. And I think it's very important to understand that this is a very real, complex set of social issues and ills in this country, where a large community of people have been robbed of their identity given the kind of colonial and apartheid history. And so what we're hoping to do is kind of present it in a beautiful way to create accessibility and participation, rather than just a documentary that says this is what it is. And right at the end, what you might notice is that there is a suitcase on his journey, or actually in the long version of the film, there's a suitcase in his journey that he packs that installation that's in his room into the suitcase. And our process at the moment is fundraising not only for an Afrikaans version of this book and the film, but actually for a suitcase that you can unpack, to unpack the installation that was in his room that dealt with art, archaeology, and astronomy, and bring that into classrooms around the country, so that the students can unpack in their classroom this journey and learn from it. So it's a real hands-on learning resource. I mean, the book goes into depth of everything, trying to explaining gravity to the mathematics behind things, to archaeological finds and what they mean for our social identity today, etc. So it's a really complex, layered educational resources for teachers and students. And we're hoping through a very simple tool like that suitcase to also make it even more accessible.
Well, that's really wonderful. Now it makes me, of course, want to see the book and the suitcase, and I hope you get the funding to make that happen, because I think how wonderful of a thing. Well, I know you're really tired, and I really just wanted our audience to sort of hear the story from you. This is really kind of a wonderful experience. Is there anything else you want to tell us that we should see before we see the movie?
Well, first of all, I appreciate your time. It doesn't matter if I'm tired or not. I'm loving every second of this project, and I'm looking forward to hearing some response and feedback. I think the important part is that you're seeing a small glimpse of a larger film and a larger journey. And our project continues in Sutherland. I think it's very important to note is that while the book and film has been completed and we're funding for other things now, the reality is we've been back to Sutherland every year for a month at least, working with the group that you get to meet in the film and more, and have now expanded this project into other towns in the Karoo area, in this kind of desert area, especially looking at the Square Kilometre Array, which is the large radio telescope that's being developed throughout the Southern African region, and seeing what kind of impact the sciences can have on social development, and how as artists we can help that cause. And I guess at the end of the day, no longer classify ourselves as artists or scientists, but rather as contemporary thinkers that are trying to, I guess, make a change somehow. And I'm hoping that you can see the film in that light and understand that it's not from one perspective, but from many.
Really wonderful. One last thing before I let you go. I know that everybody who's watching this is going to ask the same question. I asked it before we started. Can you talk about what's behind you?
Yeah, the image behind me is a image of Station Mir, which was hit by meteorites and space junk and all kinds of, I think it was meteorites. Anyway, this is an image by Walter Stach, an Austrian artist that I've been collaborating with. Yeah, it's a beautiful piece that's hanging in my lounge. But for me is a reference to a lot of work that I make, which is about the imaginary space out there that we don't quite understand. So the kind of link to the sciences and to space and art is very obvious on the wall behind me.
Yeah.
And so Bronwyn and I share this apartment and kind of fill it as we can with other artists' work that inspired us. And yeah, that's what you have here.
Well, Marcus, it's so wonderful to have met you. It's one of the great joys of running a festival is you get to have conversations with people who you otherwise wouldn't at all. The work is extremely inspiring, and as it's really obvious to everybody who's been listening, this is just a small piece of all of the great work that you do in so many different kind of ways. We tend to think of artists trying to do things in communities to make things better. You are just doing magnificent things. I'm just really honored to have a chance to, have a chat with you. And I know you're extremely tired from your long day, but thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And
thank you and Bronwyn Leys, my collaborator, and Guy Spiller, and the rest of the team from Africa Meets Africa would have loved to have been part of this conversation. But I know that they are part of it in spirit, and if anybody wants to contact them, please feel free to hand out my details. I'm very happy to be in communication with anyone that's keen to participate or learn more about the project. Thank you for your time.
I will, before the film shows and after the film, talk about the book and the suitcase and the project as well. So I will do that. Thank you so much for spending the time, and this has been a real treat for me.
I hope to see you in Dallas later this year. I'm going to actually be there hopefully in November, so yes.
Oh, wonderful. Well, that would be really great. I look forward to meeting you. I will send you a link for this in just a few moments, okay?
Thank you so much.